It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and get subscribed, give a follow, give a review. Today we're talking about parking, specifically parking nightmares. How does a parking nightmare get created? Well, simple. You have more cars than there are parking spaces. And this is something that we're only going to see more and more and more of in places like Southern California and Northern California, as Gavin Newsom holds the entire state hostage to his housing mandates. See, here's what happens. Gavin Newsom says, we got to build a whole bunch more housing. And he likes to tout something called RHNA, which is every region's housing goal, the amount of housing they have to promise to build by a certain date. And one of the ways to expedite that building is to build as much housing as possible. And one of the things that they decided to do was pass SB 9 and a few other state laws that made it easier to build, quote, affordable housing without parking near transit hubs, transit stops. What's a transit hub, you ask? Oh, it could be a bus stop. It could be if you have two bus stops within a mile of each other, you're a transit hub. See, it's all based on the idea of if you build apartments without parking, people will move into those apartments without cars. What the reality is you build apartment buildings with no parking, people move into those apartment buildings and then clog up the rest of the streets because, of course, they have a car. This is true in Southern California more than anywhere else, but it's also true in parts of Northern California. And now a neighborhood in San Rafael is at the beginning of a parking nightmare. And everything the city is trying to do to fix it is making it worse. For more on the parking nightmare in San Rafael, we go to KPIX.
So finding a parking space is often a challenge in the Bay Area. It's particularly difficult in one area of East San Rafael. Homeowners have been complaining for years about outsiders filling their streets with cars. So the city has come up with a plan for parking permits. But as John Ramis reports, it has the neighborhoods up in arms.
Oh boy. How exactly are parking permits pissing people off? Well, ask anybody that lives in a neighborhood with parking permits.
This is Spinnaker Point, an area of upscale homes in San Rafael where the streets are jammed with cars from another neighborhood nearby. The city's trying to do something about it, but nobody seems very thrilled with the solution they've come up with. The real problem is here in the Canal District, an area of dense, low-income housing where there simply aren't enough spaces for all the cars.
Because we build low-income housing without parking spaces, because it's cheaper for the developer, or they get a bonus. You know, those 2 or 3 floors that could be parking, they could build more units there. And we give tax incentives to build more, quote, affordable housing. And we've eliminated things like parking minimums. You would imagine 2-bedroom apartment, you need 2 cars for every single one of those places. And we're not doing that. But people are still getting cars. They're still using cars. Heck, there's a lot of people in low-income housing that use their car for their job, whether they're a delivery driver, whether they're a gardener, whether they're a plumber, although that's not really a low-income job. But there are a lot of people that use their car for work. And by you not offering a parking space in that building because it's somehow cheaper to build that, you're stressing the entire rest of the neighborhood. And it's not only the low-income housing. Let's not forget, we have also made it incredibly easy to subdivide your house, where you can turn your single-family lot into a 2-plex, 3-plex, or 4-plex. Not a whole lot of people are doing that. But what a lot of people are doing is taking the state up on how easy it is. Well, easy figuratively, it's still expensive as hell to build an ADU in your backyard, which is a definite way that we can achieve certain housing goals by putting up a little tiny shack in your backyard and renting it out. Or renting it out, they used to call them granny flats because maybe you want your mother-in-law to live there. Maybe you don't. But one thing that we don't seem to require when people are building ADUs in their neighborhoods is making sure you have parking on the lot, because there's not that much street parking to begin with.
So they end up parking in the adjacent Spinnaker, Bay Point, and Bahia neighborhoods, which have a 24-hour time limit for parking.
They have no place to park, so they bring their trucks and their cars over here, and then they have some kind of system, and they've got it down pretty well, where they move cars all the time.
Bonnie Smolin has lived with the problem.
Can you imagine that? You have to constantly, every day when you come home from work, drive to the neighborhood one over, look around, try to find a space, and know you got to move that car as quickly as possible. That is quite a life.
Bonnie Smolin has lived with the problem for 10 years and has learned to park in front of her home on garbage day so there is room for her trash bins.
Oh, there's the other wrinkle in all of this. And my neighborhood isn't exactly overtaxed with cars on the streets, but it's at its limit. And on garbage days, it can be real rough.
But as we were speaking, a man in a work van moved her bin onto the sidewalk so he could park in the space.
Okay, that's a-hole behavior. You do not move somebody's trash bin so you can steal their parking space. No, that's not allowed. That's not cool.
But as we were speaking, a man in a work van moved her bin onto the sidewalk so he could park in the space.
We need to have a space to park, to put our garbage on a Wednesday because.
So should I parallel park in here?
Who are you here?
What should I do? Should I park in the red zone?
He ended up moving someone else's garbage cans and parked in front of their house.
Okay, that guy sucks.
It's an absurd situation, so the city...
Especially if they don't live in that neighborhood.
It's an absurd situation, so the city is proposing a permit parking plan that would restrict who could be in the neighborhood. Each home would be...
You see this in some neighborhoods in Hollywood.
Each home would be eligible for one permit at a cost of about $200 per year, linked to the car's license number.
Okay, first off, the city of San Rafael decides, okay, the way we're going to solve this is to charge everyone for parking permits? No. You created the parking nightmare, and now you're trying to profit off of it? That's not cool. But oh, wait, there's more.
Each home would be eligible for one permit at a cost of about $200 per year, linked to the car's license number. Additional permits could be purchased for parking in a commercial zone a considerable distance away. But to the neighbors...
This is like what it's like to park when I go to Carmel by the Sea, which is, as I have said, one of the most beautiful places in California. And if I could live there, I would. But I have driven to Carmel, I have flown to Carmel. And driving to Carmel is interesting because most of the hotels do not have parking. Street parking in the main city center is 2 hours. So when we decided to stay at the Cypress Inn over the MLK Day weekend, we had to drop off all our bags and then drive around for 20 minutes looking for a parking space. It was worth it. And the thing is, you're in Carmel. Once this car is parked, you don't really use it unless you want to go out to Carmel Valley Village and taste the wine out there. But boy, that's a hassle and a half. Imagine if that's your daily life.
But to the neighbors, there's a glaring problem. The Canal District and other neighborhoods are all lumped into the same zone, so anyone with a permit could still park wherever they want.
Okay, I don't know how the city can get something so simple, so wrong, so many different ways, but the residents of a neighborhood are pissed off because people in the next door neighborhood, they're parking in their spaces because their low income housing doesn't have any parking. So what does the city do? They say, we're going to sell permits to everyone, including people in that neighborhood, to park in your neighborhood. That didn't fix anything.
It's stupid.
I get very animated about parking. I get very animated about traffic. These are things that should be very basic, but the cities and counties and the state do so many things to make them even worse.
It's
all based on the nonsensical idea that maybe in a city like San Francisco, sure. Outside of that, people need their cars. People have their cars, and you can build a building with no parking, People still have cars, and now you have nowhere to put them.
It's stupid because it links their neighborhood with our neighborhood, so it will do nothing to relieve the congestion that we currently have.
Yeah, except now everyone's got to pay the city $200 a pop.
Because they're going to need a permit there as well as here.
They'll get a permit to park in our parking spots, yes.
This is local government making a situation bad, and then to fix it, making a situation worse.
Because they're going to need a permit there as well as here.
They'll get a permit to park in our parking spots, yes.
But what if someone was having a guest over for dinner? Assistant City Manager John Stefanski explains the plan.
Right now, we're anticipating that individual homeowners will be able to purchase a guest pass several days in advance of guests coming over, but that's something that's still currently under development.
That's insanity! You now cannot invite people over to your home, your friends, your family, unless within 24 hours you reserve a guest permit from the city, and that's going to cost you money? This makes no sense. And believe you me, even though this is just in the small city of San Rafael, Los Angeles comes up with these kinds of idiotic ideas all the time. Not just Los Angeles. We see this stuff all over the state. I mean, I've done several stories of these kinds of parking nightmare fights with these giant developments with no parking being built in places like San Diego and Carlsbad. It's happening all over the place with this magic thinking, wishful thinking of if you build a building with no parking, people won't have cars.
So in other words, if you have somebody that comes for dinner and they need to park on the street, you have to get a permit ahead of time from the city and pay $10 is what the proposal is. That,
Have you ever...
These are the kinds of policies that will get every single person in local elected office there fired. These are the kinds of nonsensical policies that torture the residents that just want to live their lives.
Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, never.
It's such a catch-22. The only way we can build affordable housing is if we build it with no parking. But then the people who move there now have to drive around all day long or now pay $200 for a parking permit. That's nuts.
The city says it is trying to balance the complaints of the homeowners with the needs of lower-income people. So
you're screwing over the lower-income people, too. How about you approve apartment buildings that have parking spaces? Is that such a radical idea? Yeah, you might need a couple more floors. You might have to dig underground, but then at least it makes sense. We are not anywhere close to a car-free world. It's not happening. Maybe in 10, 20 years, Elon Musk's dream will come true, and most people won't need to own a car unless they really want to or they need to for work because there's just a fleet of Teslas that you can hail whenever, wherever. I would love to see that future, but I don't think we're there anytime soon, and building for that before the technology is here is nonsensical because in most parts of the state of California, outside of the city of San Francisco, public transit does not work. These cities were not built for them. This region was not built for them, and we have even all the money that we have spent on Metro in Los Angeles in the last 20 years have not built nearly enough of it for it to go anywhere for anybody if you live in the valley.
So the solution has become a bit complicated.
Our consultant that we're working with does this work nationally, and they have found this to be one of the more challenging projects.
They're trying, but...
I want to be a transportation consultant. I don't think you have to have any experience. You can come up with bat-ass ideas all day long, and they probably make over six figures. That sounds like a great idea.
Our consultant that we're working with does this work nationally, and they have found this to be one of the more challenging projects.
They're trying, but it's like shooting at a target and hitting the haystack instead of the bullseye.
I think he got his references mixed up.
Today was supposed to be the deadline for neighbors to submit their opinions in an online survey, but the city says it has extended that date to February 21st. They say nothing has been decided, and they're willing to listen to anything the public has to say.
Absurd is the word. John Ramos, nice story.
Absurd is the word. I like that. So there you go. That's what's going in the city of San Rafael, but maybe this situation seems a little familiar to you because we are seeing these parking nightmares get worse and worse and worse in all different parts of Southern California. So here's what I want to do. At 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, if you have got a parking nightmare developing in your neighborhood, I want to hear about it. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. On top of that, I want to hear from you. Do you think it makes any sense to eliminate parking minimums when we approve these low-income housing units, when we approve these ADUs? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your thoughts on the concept of building homes with no parking. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with Linda in Culver City. Linda, hello.
Hi, this goes right along with the newly announced today in Westchester, part of City of LA, just south of LAX. They have announced 333 low-income apartments with 52 parking spots. So now the people in that housing area are going to have to deal with all the people, the 300 people who live in the apartments, although let's face it, there's probably going to be 600 people that are now going to park in the neighborhood, that are already struggling with all of the people who dump their cars in the neighborhood for their quick trips to LAX and, don't want to pay the parking structure fees and all of the other people that park, in the neighborhood to do that.
Oh, Linda, you're so right. And that is, I think, one of the biggest a-hole moves in the entire city of Los Angeles is you're too cheap to pay for a rideshare all the way to the airport. So you drive your car to Westchester in a single-family neighborhood. You park your car there for a week, and then you fly. You take the Uber to LAX for $5. That is so rude and so... It is awful that people do that, and I wish we would do something about that. And that problem's only going to get worse, like you said, because we're building 300 units with 50 parking spaces.
333, 52 parking spaces. Figure that out.
That is complete insanity. Thank you so much for the call, Linda. Appreciate it. The phone lines are open right now. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Do you have a parking nightmare that's getting worse in your neighborhood? What do you think about building affordable housing with no parking? Does that make any sense to anybody? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Residents in a neighborhood in San Rafael in Northern California are experiencing a parking nightmare. All of their street parking is impossible to use because of an adjacent neighborhood's affordable housing development that didn't build any parking spaces for those residents. So now they're parking in their neighborhood. And the city's answer is, well, let's just have permits that people have to pay $200 for, except people in that neighborhood can also use the permits for your neighborhood. I want to hear from you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you've got a parking nightmare developing in your neighborhood because of affordable housing or ADUs, I want to hear from you. 800-222-KABC. And I also want to hear from you, 800-222-KABC, if you think it makes sense to be approving developments with no minimum parking. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you want to email us, you could do so at randykabc@gmail.com. Mary writes in and says, I'm a fellow Valley denizen, and while I have parking, recently had to leave my car out because they were power washing the garage. I wanted to leave it out overnight, but discovered all the side streets that used to be available were very limited permit parking. Isn't that great? She lives in the neighborhood and she can't get a permit for her own neighborhood. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Has the street parking in your neighborhood turned into a nightmare because of affordable housing or ADUs? Give me a call, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Do you think it makes sense to build all this affordable housing without parking? 800-222-KABC. If you're on hold, stay on hold. We're getting to you next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. And the easiest way ever to get the podcast of this show, go to kabc.com/newsblitz. It's all right there. We're taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. In the city of San Rafael, there's a parking nightmare developing where the adjacent neighborhood to a single-family home neighborhood built an affordable housing development with little to no parking. So now everybody over there is parking in this neighborhood, and the city's answer is, okay, let's just charge everyone $200 permits in both neighborhoods to park wherever they want. If you've got a parking nightmare developing in your neighborhood, thanks to affordable housing or ADUs, I'd love to hear from you. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. What do you think about building all of this affordable housing to meet our housing goals and not building adequate parking? 800-222-KABC. If you're on hold, stay on hold. Let's get to the phones now. Helen in Torrance. Helen, hello.
Oh, hello. Good topic. It doesn't take a mental giant to see what the motivation is. The state is on a crusade to get us out of our cars. And there was a time when if you wanted to improve your property, the Department of Building and Safety would not let you do it unless you had plenty of room for your additional square footage. Even they would say you have to have ample turning radius. They were very mindful of cars, and it's just a mindset. So nowadays, they don't care about, it's not so much they don't care, it's if you just follow it through, think it through to its ultimate conclusion. What will we look like in 5 years when we have these affordable housing with just, say, 50 people out of 300 with parking? I mean, even that'll produce harmony in the complex, won't it? That people are privileged and then they're the unprivileged. Some have parking, some don't. It's so simple. They're trying to choke us out of our cars. Think it through. Just think it through.
You're so right, Helen. Thank you so much for the call. And I know that that's the end goal, but it's not practical. There is not an alternative that makes sense. People don't feel comfortable spending 3 hours a day on the bus. The light rail doesn't go anywhere. They've been building it forever, but this is such a massive area. I mean, do I have to go into detail of how long it would take me to get to Culver City from the San Fernando Valley if I was going to take a bus, if I was going to take the rail? It would be a nightmare. It's already a nightmare driving. That tells you how bad how bad the bus and how bad the rail lines are. It does not make sense. And they keep building like this, assuming that, well, you know, people will get out of their cars. They'll use the transit. But they're not doing that. People are renting these units because they're probably cheaper, and then they're driving around and clogging up every neighborhood possible to use up their parking. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I was just listening to new LA City Councilwoman Isabel Jurado talk to the Streets for All people, the road diet crowd, the ones that advocate for stuff like this. And she was talking about how she doesn't let her daughter ride transit because it's not safe. She wants everybody else to, and she wants to ruin everybody's life in downtown LA that happens to need to drive a car. I think every single member of the LA City Council, I think every single member of the LA County Board of Supervisors, every single member of the Metro Board, the mayor, and every single municipality that tries to shove public transit down our throats should have to ride it as their main mode of transportation. You can walk the walk if you're going to talk the talk. Show us that you can do it, and then maybe people will believe it. But most people won't because it does not work, and in Los Angeles, it's not safe. Let's go to Fred in Chino Hills. Fred, hello.
Howdy. How you doing?
Doing great.
So what you're talking about is the most stupid thing in the world, because we had this problem 50s, 60s, 70s when we were building apartments. And then they realized, oh, shucks, we don't have parking. All you got to do is look at L.A. And then we made the infinite wisdom. I've been in construction for 40 years. They figured it out. Said, okay, now we're going to make X amount of parking for X amount of square feet. And they did it. And here we go, Mr. Newsom, in his infinite wisdom, well, no, I'm going to fix the problem that already got fixed.
You're so right. We keep reinventing the wheel when we've done these things before and we've fixed these problems before. But in this nonsensical crusade to build as much housing as possible, even where it doesn't make sense, we've decided, oh, okay, no one's going to need parking. That doesn't work. It's just not practical.
Yeah, it is not. I mean, I'm in the construction, so I got to go where the job is. So I need the vehicle.
Totally.
And then when I get to the job, I need the parking. So you're telling me I go to a city that needs a permit. Well, now before I start the job, I got to go to the city council to get the permit. Yeah. We pay taxes, we pay property taxes, and then you go ahead and you're going to do a money grab of a $200 parking permit? No.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
complete insanity. And I hope every single member of the San Rafael City Council get recalled over that nonsense.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. But we'll see. We'll see. That's the power of the vote. Everybody's got to get out and vote. But thanks
You're
for
totally
listening.
right. Thanks.
Love hearing you every afternoon, brother.
Thanks so much for the call, Fred. I appreciate it. We got to start vote. These are the questions that need to be asked. Not about what your opinion is on national issues, not what your opinion is on climate change or anything else that a local official can't do anything about. What is your opinion on having parking spaces for the cars that are supposed to be in the place that you represent? 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. There is a parking nightmare brewing in San Rafael where there are affordable housing developments being built with no parking, so everyone goes and parks in the adjacent neighborhood, clogging up that neighborhood. And the city's answer to all of this and all the upset residents is, well, we'll charge both neighborhoods $200 for permits. And you could still park there and clog up the streets, and people are fighting over trash day. People fight over trash day even in this neighborhood. If you're on hold, stay on hold. What do you think about these parking nightmares where we're building all this affordable housing and ADUs without adequate parking? 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We're going to Bernie. We're going to Hector. We're going to you next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. You know, I watch a lot of content on YouTube, and if you just search for the subject parking minimums, boy, do you get a lot of biased videos from the city planner folks that say parking lots are ruining your city. Parking laws are strangling America. We should abolish parking minimums. The high cost of free parking. Oh, boy, there are so many people living in a dream world. And you know what? For certain cities, maybe. But not Southern California, and outside of San Francisco, not Northern California. Doesn't make sense. People have cars, they use their cars, and you build a place without parking, they're just going to take that car somewhere where it's not wanted. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. What do you want to say about these parking nightmares created by California's housing policy? Let's go to Bernie in Lakewood. Bernie, hello.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Doing great.
That's good. Yeah, these ADUs don't make any sense. Our governor, our mayor, they don't know what they're doing. They're always talking about rolling blackouts, the grid's getting stretched, no water, and how does have 8 adults at one address as opposed to just 2? The water, the electricity, the overcrowded schools, everything. It doesn't make any sense.
I think you make a good point, Bernie. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. I mean, it's one of the things, outside of just parking, when we decide to, like what happened in the Valley, thanks to Karen Bass's executive orders when she first got into office, her big executive order 1, there was a neighborhood in Sherman Oaks where a single family home was going to get bought by a developer and turned into a 7-story building. And yeah, parking, definitely one problem with that. Other problems, sewage. Other problems, getting around, utilities. All these are the things that were not built for. It's like we had zoning for a reason, but now the only way to build enough housing for everyone is to get rid of all the zoning. It's insane because still, you're not solving the inherent problem of people either can't or don't want to live near where they work, so people have to drive. It is a fact of life, and making driving more difficult doesn't stop people from driving. It just makes them angrier, as evidenced by the amount of horn honking every day on the 405. Let's go to Hector in Irvine. Hector, hello.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, Randy. I don't know if you could think of it this way. One way is that these guys want to control everything, every aspect of your life. I'm an immigrant. I came here with my family. And one of the biggest dreams is that we want to, own a piece of the rock. And what they're doing is preventing people like me or somebody who is low income who wants to buy a piece of the rock cannot do it anymore because the prices are so high. All these ordinances, all these regulations are throwing things out of whack. And now they're telling me that, hey, we don't want you to own a car. And that's one of the dreams when we come into this country is that we want to, show off our cars. We want to show this and show a little bit of progress. And to me, that's a way of, I don't know, say discrimination or something like that, but it's controlling of how I want to live my life.
And that is California politics to a T. Thank you so much for the call, Hector. Call us anytime. And to that point, I have pointed this out several times. Gavin Newsom has made housing and homelessness his number one priority since he became governor over 6 years ago. And every single year, there have been so many new laws designed to make housing more affordable, designed to make development easier. All of these things, every single reform, he's even talking about CEQA reform, everything that they have done has increased the cost of housing. Housing is more expensive than it's ever been. And all these things that they're doing are not making it any cheaper to live here, but it sure is making it more of a pain in the ass to live here. If you're on hold, stay on hold. We're getting to you next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's get back to the phones and go to our buddy Demetrius in Mar Vista. Demetrius, hello.
Randy, what's happening?
Doing great.
Hey, listen, you struck a chord, man, with the parking and parking lots. When we were fighting the road diets years back before the pandemic, they wanted us to get out of our cars and to take transportation, bicycle lanes and Ubers and this and that, and they narrow the lanes down. Let's not even talk about the obstruction of firefighters trying to respond to emergencies. But in that road-dieted area, Mar Vista on Venice Boulevard, there was a store that came up for lease, and, you have to check with the city to see what you want to do. And I went there with the owner to see what could be done there. And they were requiring a parking spot that never existed there since the beginning of time. They said in order to open a business there, you have to provide 60-car parking lot on Venice Boulevard. And I said, listen, they would have to demolish the building to make that even a reality, and it would be the whole property. So that doesn't make sense. And by the way, your bosses want people out of their cars, so why are you still requiring parking lots for businesses? So it's a perfect example of putting the cart before the horse. And on the CEQA, amendments, you mean the abolishment. they imposed CEQA on everybody that was doing anything in the city. But when they want to do their plans for bridge housing or bicycle lanes, they want to do away with CEQA. So I don't know. You got me all going up. I just brought back nightmares. But the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. So go figure.
You're so right about that. They speak out of both sides of the mouth on so many issues, on things that they care about. Yes, the environmental review doesn't matter and parking doesn't matter. But yes, when a business wants to open, all of a sudden you need parking, even in a place where it doesn't make sense. And even when they're making it harder for street parking, it's insanity. Demetrius, good to hear from you, buddy.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thank you. Let's go to Sam in Sherman Oaks. Sam, hello.
Hello. Yes. The population of the state, especially in Los Angeles City and County, has gone down, decreased over the past several years. That's why we lost a congressional district. That's why Karen Bass lost her congressional seat and decided to run for mayor. Okay. And so what is all this thing about, I think this whole affordable housing issue is just a canard, just designed to push the radical left's policies, trying to push people either you take public transportation or you go out and buy an electric car. I mean, that's sort of the divide, and the whole issue with parking is in residential neighborhoods, expanding the occupancy, of a lot, from just being, a single family home to a multi.
No, they want to get rid of that. Thanks so much for the call. And yeah, they want to push you towards an electric car, but then there's no parking for that. It's nonsense. Believe you me, this story ain't going away, so we'll be getting back to it because these are the policies that our elected officials think are the greatest thing ever. Thanks so much for the calls, everyone. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.